Even if you break our promise, O Rama, I will not break it on my part. If not you, who else could I love? I do not know how to go on pilgrimages or perform rituals. I only trust in your lotus feet. Wherever I go, I worship you. There is no one to compare with you, O Lord. I have attached my mind to the Lord. Having tied myself to him, I have broken ties with all else. Radha says, at all times I desire you alone. Thus I offer all my thoughts, words, and deeds to you. जो तुम तोड़ो राम, मैं नाही तोड़ूं। जो तुम तोड़ो राम, मैं नाही तोड़ूं। जो तुम तोड़ो राम, मैं नाही तोड़ूं। तुमसे तोड़ कवन से जोड़ूं। तुमसे तोड़ कवन से जोड़ूं। जो तुम तोड़ो राम, मैं नाही तोड़ूं। जो तुम तोड़ो राम, मैं नाही तोड़ूं। तीरथ बरतना, तीरथ बरतना करो अंदेसा। तीरथ बरतना करो अंदेसा। तुम्हारे चरण कमल का भरोसा। तीरथ बरतना करो अंदेसा। तुम्हारे चरण कमल का भरोसा। जहाँ जहाँ जाऊँ तुम्हारी पूजा। जहाँ जहाँ जाऊँ तुम्हारी पूजा। तुम सा देव और नहीं दूजा। तुम सा देव और नहीं दूजा। जो तुम तोड़ो राम, मैं नाही तोड़ूं। जो तुम तोड़ो राम, मैं नाही तोड़ूं। तुमसे तोड़ कवन से जोड़ूं। तुमसे तोड़ कवन से जोड़ूं। जो तुम तोड़ो राम, मैं नाही तोड़ूं। मैं अपनो मन, मैं अपनो मन हरि से जोड़ूं। मैं अपनो मन हरि से जोड़ूं। हरि से जोड़ूं। हरि से जोड़ूं। मैं अपनो मन हरि से जोड़ूं। हरि से जोड़ सवन से तोड़ूं। मैं अपनो मन हरि से जोड़ूं। हरि से जोड़ सवन से तोड़ूं। तुमसे तोड़ कवन से जोड़ूं, जो तुम तोड़ो राम मैं नाही तोड़ूं, जो तुम तोड़ो राम, जो तुम तोड़ो राम, जो तुम तोड़ो राम मैं नाही तोड़ूं.
Thank you, Preeti. So today is an auspicious day. It is Rama's birthday, and it also is Palm Sunday. So in many ways, it is auspicious. The topic today is truth, Satyam. And I'll start with a quote from one of the Upanishads, the Isha Upanishad. Om Hiranyamayena Patrena Satyasya Pihitam Mukham Tatvam Pushana Pavarnu Satyadharmaya Drishyate Pushane Karshiyama Surya Prajapatya Vyuha Rasmin Samuha Tejo Yate Rupam Kalyatamam Tate Pashami Yoso Aso Purusha Sohamasmi. Like a lid, thy shining golden orb covers the entrance to truth in thee. Remove it, O Sun, so that I, who am devoted to the true, may behold that. O Sun, the offspring of Prajapati, thou lonely courser of the heaven, thou controller and supporter of all, contract thy rays, withdraw thy light. Through thy grace, I behold the most blessed form of thine. I am indeed he, that being who dwells there. So in Hinduism, truth is defined as the unchangeable, the eternal, that which is beyond the distinctions of time, place, and person, that which pervades the universe in all of its constancy, infinite and unchanging. There are many references, properties, and explanations of truth by Hindu sages that explain the various facets of the truth. But anything that changes cannot be completely true. The human body, for example, therefore is not completely true, as it definitely changes with time. It's subject to death, and it belongs to a changing reality. Satya is the Sanskrit word for truth. The highest truth can mean God himself, or sometimes we use it to mean an ethical virtue, being true and consonant with reality in one's thought, speech, and action. In yoga, Satya is listed as one of the 5 yamas, which are considered to be basic for all spiritual sadhana. These are ahimsa, non-injury, satya, truthfulness, asteya, lack of greed, brahmacharya, self-control, and aparigraha, non-grasping or accumulating things. Satya is sometimes translated as the virtuous restraint from falsehood and distortion of reality in one's expressions and in one's actions. Those two fundamental human tasks, telling the truth and knowing the truth, have a close relationship to one another. When you tell the truth, you practice essentially a spiritual value, the skill of knowing it first. When you lie, either to others or to yourself, you blur the boundaries of the truth. Lying robs you of that internal ability for the recognition of truth that we naturally all have. And it diminishes your ability to recognize the truth when you see it. One person says Satya means truth, but not what you think about it, what it really is. Not your idea about it, but its reality. To know this truth, you have to be absolutely absent. Your very presence will distort the vision, because your presence means the presence of your mind, your prejudices, your conditionings. You're nothing else but a bundle of all that's been forced upon you by your family, religion, by society, by the so-called leaders of humanity. Your absence means the absence of prejudice, all borrowed knowledge, just a pure sky, a pure being. This absence of you is real presence. Only the prejudices are absent. The ego is absent. Your knowingness is absent. But your being shines forth in its utter purity. You disappear as a personality, and there remains only a pure presence. So it's absence on one side of all that's false in you, and its presence on the other side, that all that is real in you. This state you simply see, you are being. This seeing of existence is the first experience of the mystic seer, contained in the word Satyam. Satyam means truth, not any conception about it, but truth itself. Satya is the central theme in the Vedanta, in the Vedas. It's equated with and considered necessary to the concept of Rita, that which is properly joined, order, rule, nature, balance, and harmony. Rita results from Satya in the Vedas as it regulates and enables the operation of the universe and everything in it. Satya, truth, is considered essential, and without it, the universe and reality falls apart. It cannot function. The word Sat in Sanskrit means that which exists, that which is. That's the basis of the word Satya. And Satya, in turn, means truthfulness, seeing and reporting things as they are rather than the way we would like them to be. People often think that they alone know what the truth is. Everyone has their own idea of what it is. And because it is shaded by their own ideas about themselves and how they view what is around them. In Western thought, commonly, truth is viewed as the correspondence of language or thought to an independent or objective reality. Western philosophers have many different ways of viewing the truth. Thomas Aquinas said, quote, "A judgment is said to be true when it conforms to the external reality." Thus, for Aquinas, the truth of the human intellect, logical truth, is based on the truth in things, the ontological truth. Veritas est ad quantico intellectus et terrae. Truth is the conformity of the intellect and of things. Immanuel Kant counters this by saying truth, it is said, consists in the agreement of cognition with its object. In consequence of this mere nominal definition, my cognition, to count as true, is supposed to agree with its object. Now, I can compare the object with my cognition, however, only by cognizing it. Hence, my cognition is supposed to confirm itself, which is far short of being sufficient for truth. For since the object is outside of me and the cognition inside of me, all I can ever pass judgment on is whether my cognition of the object agrees with my cognition inside. This point, it's out the basic flaw in making truth something intellectual at all. There are many other theories about the nature of truth put forth by the Western philosophers, beginning with the ancient Greek philosophies, Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle. And according to Heidegger, the original meaning and essence of truth in ancient Greece was unconcealment, or the revealing or bringing out of what was previously hidden, bringing it into the open. From a Vedantic point of view, this could be thought of as revealing the Atman, which is within us all. This is an interesting point, no doubt, but in the talk today, I really want to narrow our discussion of truth down to the term Satya in Hindu thought. Immediately, the basic question arises, what is the view about reality in Hindu philosophy? In Hinduism, there's several different levels of reality, and they're all recognized to be true to some extent. They're called Satya, each with a modifying adjective. The highest reality, or Satyasya Satya, the truth of truths, is considered to be the only unchanging, permanent reality, Sat, or God itself. This is Paramartika Satya, or the highest reality. The Brihadaranyaka Upanishad tells us, as a spider moves along a thread it produces, or as from fire little sparks scatter in all directions, just so the self issues forth all organs, all worlds, all gods, and all living beings. Tasyo Upanishada, Satyasya Satya Smriti, Pranavai Satyam Tesham Mesham Satyam. Its secret name is Satyasya Satya, truth of truths. The vital force is truth, and it is the truth of that. Pravrajika Satya is a reflection of the admitted light. This stage is like a dream, when the experienced objective existence is non-different from the experiencing subject, but the subject is unaware of the oneness of objects and the dream reality. Vyavaharika Satya is transactional reality. This is what most of us in the West consider to be real. To make our actions possible, the complete distinction between the objects and the subject need to be drawn. And here the senses are active. We take their input to be true, and we act accordingly. This is the reality of science, where things can be experienced and measured by the senses, and which is ruled by the law of time, space, and causation. It's often hard for a scientist to make the leap from reality which can be measured to one which cannot. Swami Ramakrishnananda once said, "Those scientists who are earnest seekers after truth are sure to realize soon. Those who are far from truth, who are bound only by their sense nature." Ramakrishna tells us that it is I and mine alone that covers the face of truth. This makes the transactional reality seem very real, because it is where the ego hangs out, as it were. Swami Shivananda tells us, unfortunately, in this world of phenomena, there's nothing that remains unchanged for a second. Now, with the idea of finding the ultimate truth, if we push our analysis further, we shall see that back of the changeable phenomena is the immutable Brahman. First, the gross objects, then subtler objects. Whatever we analyze in the outer world, we will fail to find any permanence in them. Baffled, we finally turn within ourselves, and this self-withdrawal or abstraction is the only way to knowledge of Brahman, the supreme reality. At the highest level, the seed consciousness Sat is the root of everything else. That is the highest reality. Paramartika Satya. Here the mind turns back along with speech. The Taittiriya Upanishad tells us, to the wise man, neither heaven nor hell nor earth exists. He knows that there is but one truth, and that it is here and now. He sees the glory of his own supreme self and nothing else. Satya, or truth, is widely discussed in various Upanishads, including the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, where Satya is called the means to Brahman, as well as Brahman itself. Sat, being, or true self, or in the Svetasvatara Upanishad, where Brahman is called Satya, truth, Shivam, auspiciousness, and Sundara, the beautiful. Again, in the Taittiriya Upanishad, it is called Satya Jnana Ananta Brahman. Swami Ramakrishnananda said, the Upanishads are the most wonderful books. They're a concise statement of all the great truths of the universe. Every line is the expression of a mind that has realized. Those who gave them out had realized God. And he who has realized God is the same as God himself. Those great seers were the embodiments of purity, so they were also able to perceive the truth. The Rig Veda, one of Vedanta's most ancient texts, declared thousands of years ago, Ekam Sadviprabahuda Vedanti. The truth is one. Sages call it by various names. The Taittiriya Upanishad says, Satyam vad dharmacha. Speak the truth and conduct yourself according to dharma, ethics, or morality. Truth is sought, praised in hymns of the Upanishads, held as that one ultimately pure one that always prevails. The Mundaka Upanishad, for example, states, Satyameva Jayate Nanritam. Truth alone triumphs, not falsehood. The slogan of India, Satyameva Jayate, truth alone triumphs, comes from this verse. In chapter 4 of the Chandogya Upanishad, Satyakama, whose name means one who desires truth, he was a boy, and later he became a Vedic sage. He first appears here in this Upanishad. As a boy, he inquires about his father from his mother, and his mother, Jabala, tells him she went about many places in her youth and didn't know who his father was. As a boy eager for knowledge, Satyakama goes to the sage Haridramata Gautama, requesting the sage's permission to live in his school for brahmacharya. And the teacher asks him, "My dear child, what family do you come from?" Satyakama replies in all innocence that he is uncertain of his parentage because his mother doesn't know who his father is. Even though the sages were only supposed to accept brahmanas as students, the sage declares that the boy's honesty is the mark of a brahmana, true seeker of knowledge of Brahman. He accepts him and he teaches him as a student in his school. And Satyakama goes on to become a knower of Brahman, a great sage. He's sent out as a student into the forest with a herd of cows and told to return when they number 1,000. Because of his great love for truth, he learns from nature itself about Brahman. The fire teaches him. Finally, one of the cow returns, and he says, "We're now 1,000." So he returns to his teacher. And when he returns to his teacher and asks again to learn about Brahman, the teacher tells him, "Your face shines like a knower of Brahman already." But he does teach him in order to keep up the guru-disciple tradition. The calmed say that what is well spoken is best. Second, that one should say what is right and not unrighteous. Third, what is pleasing and not displeasing. Fourth, what is true and not false. This was spoken by the Buddha. Sri Ramakrishna had great reverence for truth, and he insisted on the practice of truthfulness. The verse, translated as "truth is one, sages call it by various names," is the basis of his teachings about the harmony of religions. He tells Turiyananda, who was studying the Upanishads, the real truth is that God alone is real and all else is falsehood. He says this is all that the Upanishads have to say. The world is a mixture of truth and make-believe. Discard the make-believe and hold on to the truth. This is sat asat vastu viveka, or discrimination between the real and the unreal. He once said, "God can be realized through truth alone." Here, truth means both the goal and the means. During his sadhana, he offered everything at the feet of the Divine Mother. He said, "Mother, here is thy knowledge, here is thy ignorance. Take them both, and give me pure love for thee. Here is thy holiness, here is thy unholiness. Take them both, and give me only pure love for thee. Here is thy good, here is thy evil. Take them both, Mother, and give me only pure love for thee. Here is thy righteousness, and here is thy unrighteousness. Take them both, Mother, and give me love for thee." I mentioned them all, he says, but I could not say, "Here is thy truth, and here is thy falsehood. Take them both." I gave up everything at her feet, but I could not bring myself to give up the truth. He taught his disciples always to speak the truth. And once when Swami Brahmananda had returned from Calcutta, the master asked, "Why can't I look at you? Have you done anything wrong?" And Rakal answered, "No." The master then asked, "Did you tell any lies?" Then Rakal remembered that one day, while chatting and joking with two friends, he told a fib. The master told him, "Never do that again. Truthfulness alone is the spiritual discipline in the Kali Yuga." I was going to tell a joke about a talking dog, but I think I better not, since Ramakrishna really didn't like it when you even joked. So, no, how deep was the master's devotion to truth? If he happened to say that he wouldn't eat any more food, he couldn't eat any more food, even if he was hungry. Once he said he would go to visit Jadu Malik, whose garden house was adjacent to the Dakshineswar temple. But later he forgot about it, and no one reminded him. After supper, he suddenly remembered his appointment. So it was quite late at night, but he had to go. I accompanied him with a lantern in my hand, and when we reached the house, we found it closed and all apparently asleep. The master pushed back the door of the living room a little, placed his foot inside the room, and then he left. The Shanti Parva of the Mahabharata states, "The righteous hold that forgiveness, truth, sincerity, and compassion are the foremost of the virtues. Truth is the essence of the Vedas. Repeatedly, the importance of truth is stated in the Mahabharata. The elder brother of the Pandavas, Yudhisthira, was said to be devoted to truth. As a child, when he was just learning to read, one of the first statements in the primer was, 'Always speak the truth.' He sat studying this saying for a long time. His teacher became very concerned because everyone else had moved on to the second, third, and fourth statements. But Yudhisthira remained on the first. When questioned about it, he said, 'I have not yet fully understood the meaning of this statement. It is said that if one can hold on to the truth, everything else will follow. That is, all the other virtues follow truth.' During the great Mahabharata war, it is said Yudhisthira's chariot floated above the ground by a few inches because of his great adherence to truth. When he twisted the truth by implying to Drona that his immortal son, Aswatthama, had been killed, Drona was a great warrior, and the Pandavas could not defeat him, and so Yudhisthira named one of the elephants Aswatthama, and he killed it, and he shouted, 'Aswatthama, the elephant, is dead.' And of course, Drona thought his son somehow had been killed, and then they killed him. But the chariot of Yudhisthira immediately sank to the earth, and the gods cried out because he twisted the truth. Vijnanananda says, "Just follow the maxims which you have read in the copybooks, mainly, always speak the truth, and so on. Only the realization of Atman, the ultimate truth behind all things, will give us everlasting peace." In the Gospel according to John, we read the words, "You shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free." Here the truth refers to Christ himself. In Hamlet we read, "This above all, to thy own self be true, and it must follow as night by day, thou canst not then be false to any man." A Vedantist might interpret this as meaning, since the truth of the self is that we are all one in the Atman, if we are all true to our inner self, we are true to all. On a more mundane level, it can also mean that if we're in the habit of lying to ourselves, we're not able to be truthful in dealing with others. Let us be honest with ourselves first and act in that honesty, making our hearts and minds one. Sri Ramakrishna says a householder must have unflagging devotion to truth. Even those engaged in business and office work should hold on to the truth. Vijnanananda once said in answer to a question, "I'm working under a businessman, and it's impossible to work there without telling lies. Will these little falsehoods stand in the way of my realizing God?" Quote, "Deviations from truth will surely hamper realization of God. God is truth, and to realize him you have to be completely truthful. But if at times, owing to special reasons, you have to utter a falsehood, it need not worry you too much, because while you are subordinate to another person, you cannot help obeying him. If you be completely truthful, you will only lose your job. Now go on working as you are doing. Afterward, when you are more free, you can follow your own inclinations and stick to truth at all times. But know it to be the last word, that to realize God, you have to be wholly truthful in thought, word, and deed." Swami Premananda says, "We hear many say that it's impossible to be truthful in business, but I do not believe it. Where truth reigns, there the Lord himself abides. If the man of business carefully enshrines truth in his heart, he will be looked upon as the greatest of all virtuous men, and his business is destined to thrive." Nag Mahashaya, a household devotee of the Master, was greatly devoted to truth. Once when he went to buy something in the market, the shopkeeper charged him 4 annas. And as he was truthful, he took the shopkeeper at his word and didn't haggle with him. A bystander, seeing him pay 4 annas, thought to himself, "What sort of man is this? He didn't even bargain." But when he learned that the man was Nag Mahashaya, the saint who believed no one would dupe others, he took the shopkeeper to task for charging 4 annas for what was worth only 2. The shopkeeper took this to heart, and the next day, when Nag Mahashaya came to buy something, the shopkeeper charged him only 2 annas for an article worth 5. With folded hands, Nag Mahashaya addressed the shopkeeper, "Why do you act like this? This is worth more than 2 annas. Please charge me the right price." Deeply moved, the shopkeeper fell at the feet of the saint. Adherence to truth brings with it a great strength. Mahatma Gandhi stresses this power, the power of truth, in Satyagraha. Sri Ramakrishna's own father lost his position because he refused to lie during a lawsuit. He was such a devotee of truth. Telling the truth is one of the glories of longing for God, Sri Ramakrishna tells us. Satya also can refer to a virtue in Hinduism, referring to the quality of being truthful in one's thought, speech, and action. A related concept, sattva, also derived from the word sat, means true essence, nature, spiritual character. Sattva is also one of the 3 gunas, where it means goodness, purity, clean, positive, one that advances good through the true nature of the self. This is not the same word as Satya, and the meanings do differ, but it comes from the same root. How can we practice truth in our lives? Several of the direct disciples of Sri Ramakrishna say it means making your heart and your lips one. Swami Premananda tells us, hold on to the truth. Make your heart and lips the same is to become truthful. Hold on to truth and you will achieve everything. This is because our innermost self is the Atman, and the Atman is truth itself. A Christian might quote the Psalm saying, "Create in me a clean heart, O Lord." This means the mind and heart should be purified, so the light of the Atman, our real true nature, stands revealed. Swami Triyananda goes a step further, saying there should be no disagreement between what one feels and what one says. And at the same time, one should not be cruel or unkind when one adheres to truth. Make your heart and tongue one. But truthfulness and kindness must go together. Say what is kind, but not untrue. Say what is true, but not what is unkind. Truth alone triumphs, not falsehood. The path by which the sages have reached perfection is the path of truth. There's no other way to freedom, no other way. He goes farther by saying to keep something secret, saying I won't tell it, is also a kind of untruth. To be absolutely frank and open in one's dealing is real truthfulness. Secretiveness is considered one of the fetters that we have. Thus, straightforwardness is considered to be a great virtue in Hinduism. To be simple, sahaja, like a child, is to be truthful. Jesus also says, "Suffer the little children to come unto me, for as of such is the kingdom of heaven." This idea of keeping a secret as being a form of untruthfulness in some sense was sort of a new idea to me. I'd not thought of it in just this way. Yet even in our legal system, we have the words, the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. To hide something back is not really being truthful. However, it is subtle, since sometimes revealing something you know may actually harm another person unnecessarily. For example, if a sadhu is sitting in a forest and a robber comes by and hides behind a tree, and as soon as the police arrive, they ask, "Where is that man?" The sadhu knows where he's hiding, but if he tells, the man will be harmed. What should he do? Perhaps pretend to practice silence might be the best solution. Remember the story of Pramananda. When he heard a missionary belittling the Hindu gods and goddesses, he became angry and abused the missionary and chased him away. Then in a dream he saw Sri Ramakrishna and was told, "You should never hurt another man's faith." The next day, Pramananda found that same missionary and apologized to him. The idea of not being unkind or telling a harsh truth is there. Swami Brahmananda says, "No one can find peace if he hurts another. Never utter one word that would hurt another person. Tell the truth, but never a harsh truth." There's a story told by Holy Mother about her giving milk to Thakur toward the end of his life. "The man who milked the temple cows used to give me milk in large quantities," he would say to me. "If I give all this milk to the temple priests, they will take it home after worship and give it to anyone and everyone. But if I leave the milk here, the master will have it." He used to give me up to 5 or 6 seers of milk a day. He was a good man, full of devotion. I used to boil the milk down to a seer and a half. The master would ask me, "How much milk is there?" I would say, a seer and a quarter." He would remark, "Perhaps more, I see such a thick scum." One day Golap was there and he asked me, "How much milk is there?" And she told the truth. "Ah, so much milk," he exclaimed. "That's why I get indigestion. Call her, call her." I came in and he told what Golap had said about the milk. I pacified him, saying, "Oh, Golap doesn't know measurement. How can she know how much the pot contains?" Another day he asked Golap about the milk, and she said in reply, "One bowl from here and another from the Kali temple." At this, the master got nervous again, and he sent for Holy Mother and began to ask about the exact measurement of the bowl, as how much it contained. And I replied, "I don't know about all these measurements. You will drink milk. Why all these inquiries about measurements? Who knows about all these calculations?" He wasn't satisfied. He said, "Can I digest all this milk? I shall get indigestion." And really that day he did get indigestion and didn't take anything at night but a little sago water. Golap said to me afterward, "Well, Mother, you should have told me about it before. How could I know? His whole evening meal is spoiled." In reply, I said to her, "There is no harm in telling a lie about food." Thus I coaxed him to eat. In this way his health got better. Is it beneficial to others? You may see something in another which may actually be true, but is it necessary to reveal it? We have to think before speaking. we can ask ourselves, is what I'm going to say truthful? Is it necessary? And will it be beneficial? There is also the point that for some there is confidentiality. A doctor, a minister, for example, may be told something in private that he shouldn't be revealed to others. And even a criminal has the right to remain silent when questioned by the police. Sometimes cultures differ greatly in this regard. In India, I found Indians nodding and saying, "Oh yes, you may do that," when actually they meant, "Over my dead body, don't ever do that." We would think, why don't they just say, "No, don't do it"? It would be so much easier for everyone. This can be especially difficult if you're wearing the Gerawa cloth, because no one wants to contradict or say no to a sadhu. That, however, is just not how the culture works. It's much more subtle than that. And perhaps it can be difficult for a Westerner to understand the Indian concept of truth. Again, from a higher standpoint, Turiyananda says, the Lord's name alone is the only truth. Everything else is unreal. In Varanasi, as bodies are carried to the cremation grounds for burning, the people chant, Ram Nam Satya Hai. Rama's name is the only reality. These words ring out through the city, and how sweet they are. Life becomes sweet if we know this truth. The great ones tell us that he who has attained his last birth becomes conscious of the truth, knows God, and succumbs no more to egotistic delusions. They know God alone is real. The world is unreal. Practicing truthfulness has a certain power as well. It is said that by practicing truthfulness for 12 years, the body and mind become controlled and pure. One is unable to say anything that is untrue. In fact, it's said that whatever such a person says will become true. Thus, if a holy person says anything to another person, it has a certain power. Ramakrishna said at one point he wanted to test his own experiences. And he said, if what I experienced is true, let this stone jump 3 times. He tells us that the stone did jump 3 times. You can believe it or not, but even Ramakrishna once had to bear the effect of his brother's angry words uttered during an argument. His brother said, "May blood come to your mouth." Immediately, the brother felt terrible and tried to take it back. But in the end, this did happen. Even though his brother didn't intend it to be so. One should be very careful what one says as it gains power. Swami Vijnanananda tells us truth must be adhered to very strictly. There should be complete harmony between preaching and practice. What comes out of your lips has to be acted upon. We read in the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna that often he would do something and then, even if he no longer needed it, he had to do it anyway. He'd say something and then he had to do it anyway, just to adhere to the truth. And here again, we are back to the ideal that the heart and tongue must become one. A person who is established in truth has a tangible power. Tantin once said about Swami Vivekananda, the first word I heard him utter was the truth. And the second word he uttered was the truth. And every word I heard him utter afterward was also the truth. You can say it was perhaps her faith, but it was also because Swamiji was a knower of God and was established in truth. the face of such a one actually does shine with that truth. It can be seen in the very countenance of such a one, as it's shown in the face of Satyakama after he returned to his teacher after his sadhana. His teacher greeted him saying, "My son, your face shines like a knower of Brahman." Its secret name is Satyasya Satya, the truth of truths. So next Sunday, there will be a talk by Swami Sarvadevananda on overcoming death. And it looks like he will be here for his 4:30 class on Tuesday as well. So he's coming back, and we will see him. I'll end with chant. Om Dya Shantir Antariksham Shanti Prithvi Shantir Apa Shanti Oshadaya Shantir Vanaspataya Shantir Vishwe Deva Shantir Brahma Shanti Sarvam Shanti Shantireva Shanti Same Shantireti Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Peace is in the heavens. Peace is in the sky, on the earth, and in the water. The herbs, the plants, and the trees are all full of peace. The gods are peaceful. Everything in the universe is pervaded by peace. May this eternal, universal peace enter our soul and being. Om, peace, peace, peace be unto us all.